Have you ever wondered why Thanksgiving is so important? It's not just a holiday, it's a celebration of sheer human survival. Remember the Pilgrims of Plymouth? They barely made it through the first brutal winter, losing half of their community. The famous feast of 1621 wasn't just a dinner, it was a monumental moment of survival and profound gratitude for the harvest that proved they could make it in this new, harsh world. Now put yourself at that table. What are you raising in your tankard to toast that victory? It certainly wasn't water. In the 1600s, clean drinking water was a deadly gamble. They needed a source of safe, nourishing liquid, and that was low ABV ale. Beer was the lifeblood of that society. Today, I'm recreating a taste of history with what I call a Pilgrim's Thanksgiving beer, a 3.9% session ale. To be authentic, we have to place the hops with ancient, locally sourced. This is not just a homebrew, it's a historical group ale brewed with herbs from my garden. Join me after my introduction and let's discover the real taste of Plymouth Rock. Thanks for coming to Papa's Happy Place.
Have never been clearer. I see what you're doing to me now. They lie, they steal, they fooled us.
To understand why this beer matters, we have to look at the journey itself. The Mayflower voyage was miserable. It took 66 days, and for much of that time, the passengers and crew relied on beer for hydration, because the water on board, well, it was tainted and foul. But as they neared the New World, a crisis hit. The ship's captain actually cut the Pilgrims off from the beer supply. He was worried about running out for his own crew on their return trip to England. So when they finally landed at Plymouth Rock, they weren't just exhausted, they were thirsty. History tells us they found an abandoned village, and one of the very first structures they prioritized building wasn't a town hall or a fortress. It was a brewery. They needed to get fermentation going immediately to secure a safe water source. This is the desperation and necessity we are trying to capture in the glass today. So the Pilgrims had their brewery, but they faced another massive problem: ingredients. Back in England, hops were just starting to become the standard for preserving and bittering beer. But here in the New World, in the middle of an untamed wilderness, you couldn't exactly order a shipment of Cascade or Buggles. They had to rely on what the land provided. They turned to an older tradition known as Groot. Groot is a simple mixture of herbs used to balance the sweetness of the malt before hops took over the world. To make this beer authentic to what they would had to scavenge, I stepped away from the brew store and went straight to my own garden to harvest 3 specific plants. Yarrow. This is a brewing staple for centuries. It adds a distinct bitterness and has a preservative quality. Wormwood, famous for absinthe, but in small amounts, provides a deep, intense bitterness to offset the malt. And mint, to add a touch of aromatic freshness and make the brew more palatable. This isn't about crafting the perfect modern IPA profile. This is about resourcefulness. If it grew in the ground, it went in the kettle. It wasn't just a lack of hops that made brewing difficult. It was the grain itself. The Pilgrims were English, and they were used to English beer made from barley. But in the New World, barley didn't grow well initially. They eventually had to adapt, fermenting everything from corn to pumpkin. But for this batch, I wanted to brew the beer they wanted to drink, the taste of home they were trying to recreate. For the base, I stuck to a traditional Old English ale. I used a grain bill that mimics the English pale malt that they would have brought over in the hull of the Mayflower or traded for. The goal is a low alcohol, malty backbone that provides calories and hydration, sitting at a sessionable 3.9% ABV. Brewing this beer felt like a race against the clock, which is exactly how it would have felt back in 1621. The actual brew day followed the steps of a standard Old English ale. I mashed the grains to extract those fermentable sugars, but the magic happened during the boil. Instead of calculating IBU contributions from hops, I was tossing in my garden harvest, the yarrow, wormwood, and mint. But here's the most important stat of the entire brew: timeline. In modern homebrewing, we often let beers condition for weeks. Pilgrims did not have that luxury. They needed drinkable liquid now. Because the ABV is low, just 3%, the fermentation is fast and clean. From the moment I mashed in to the moment the beer was ready to drink took 10 days. That's a quick turnaround for a thirsty colony. Speed was a feature, not a bug. Now for the moment of truth. What does 1621 actually taste like? First, aroma. Yeah, if you're used to a citrusy or piney blast of the modern hops, this is a completely different world. You get the maltiness from the Old English base, but the top notes are incredibly herbal. Almost like walking through a garden after the rain. On the palate, it's distinctly earthy. There's a bitterness there. I think that's from the wormwood, but it's not that clean, crisp bitterness of a hop pellet. It lingers different. To be honest, there's a slight kind of medicinal quality to it, likely from the yarrow and wormwood combination. It doesn't taste bad. It just tastes functional. 3.9%. It's light and easy to drink. You could drink this all day for hydration without getting intoxicated. Rugged, herbal ale that tastes like the land it came from. Drinking this beer, the slight medicinal tang makes perfect sense. This wasn't brewed for a bottle share or an untapped rating. It was brewed to keep people alive. This is the biggest takeaway from the experiment. We often think of beer as a luxury or a vice, but for Pilgrims, it was a critical technology. In a time when clean water was impossible to find and often deadly to drink, fermentation was the only thing standing between them and dysentery. This beer explains how they made it through the second year to celebrate the harvest. So, the next time you crack open a cold one before Thanksgiving dinner, take a second to appreciate just how easy we have it. We drink for flavor. They drink for life. Hey, I want to know, would you ever be brave enough to ditch the hops and brew a group for your own garden? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into historical brewing, hit that like button and subscribe for more experiments. Cheers and happy Thanksgiving.